The ones that figured out building flappers at 11,000 people, right? So.
Dave, can you hear me okay?
Fire or something over in that area.
You're a little bit quiet, but I can hear you.
Okay, are you all fired up for the spelling bee in the morning?
Been up in the attic and stuff. There's the eclipse.
I said I'll be there with bells on.
Good, okay, excellent.
But I'd be.
I'm gonna come watch, I'm gonna come sit for a second.
Do they give us an answer sheet?
I have, no, they will. That's why when you get there, just a little bit early.
Second.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I did it last year, it was so much fun.
Where did they do, David, do that from? Mission Bar started.
I don't think that's what that's about.
That's the new business application.
What are you talking about?
Oh, that's the new business license, the renewal, you want the renewal one?
Yes.
Okay. Is it this one?
So I never had to. Your move.
So everybody pretty much ready? Ready to roll. In which case, it is 6 o'clock. We call this Leadville City Council regular meeting of February 7th, 2023 to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill. Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
Councilmember Grant. Present. Mayor Lobby.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Green.
Here.
Councilmember Ferdenzi.
Present.
And Councilmember Luertzen is absent.
Great, thank you very much. At this time, I would ask for the approval of the agenda. Anything on the agenda that anyone would like to have changed?
I move to approve the agenda.
Full set. Any other discussion?
Mayor Lobby Christiana, but raise your hand.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I would like to request that resolution number 5 be considered after ordinance number 12. Those two items are related, and resolution 5 shouldn't be approved unless ordinance 12 is adopted.
Okay.
When I read it, I was like, oh.
Things backwards, but that's all right. Yes, we will, we have a motion and a second. Can you amend the motion to include moving 8D till after 8F?
Grant moves to amend the agenda to include moving 8D to beyond
After 8F.
8F.
Another seconds.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, all were in favor. This time we have housekeeping matters. Anything anybody would like to discuss briefly before we get into the rest of the agenda?
I do, President, you can go back to my soapbox, I'll keep it short. I think it's time that we seriously start considering, at the very least for next year, reconsidering the police department. It's a sinking ship. It's been a sinking ship since the beginning of it, to be honest. It doesn't make sense that we keep using the people's money for something that has never worked for them and has constantly worked against them. And it's clear that we currently aren't in a position where we can properly run one. That doesn't mean that we won't be forever. It just means that given our history, our recent history, it's very clear that we haven't been able to make this work. And instead of wasting the people's money and say, you know what, this time we got it. I think it'd be wise to kind of divvy that off. Give some money to sheriffs, maybe they can hire some of our great officers that we already have. And let them kind of get the ball rolling for themselves. And then maybe in the future, we come back and say, you know what, we're more prepared. We have this sorted out. We'll have the support that whoever is running it will need to make sure that this is a functioning police department. But for a town of 2,000 people, we're spending $1 million on the police department. Just, it doesn't seem worth it, given how much history of corruption there has been within it. So I think it's time to seriously start having those conversations of moving that along and having something else in mind, because I'm sure as hell it would be way cheaper to run the, or at least, you know, stipend the efforts that the sheriff would need to run some policing in this area.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any other housekeeping matters?
I do as well. In my position in Eagle County School, I had the opportunity to attend some professional development. For the record, it was not a feel-good professional development of the season. It had to do with human trafficking and exploitation in the workplace, labor trafficking, as well as minor trafficking. And it was very interesting. And it, of course, I'm sitting there in a professional role, but it harkened back to what we read in the paper when we read about what happens in our motels. And so I brought some resources, and if anyone in the city is interested, I think that we could bring that professional development here. It was 3 hours. It was very engaging, aside from the content. But I think living in a resort town, resort community, it's something that if we're not already doing, and perhaps you are, but if we're not already doing, it would be worth considering and putting in the forefront of our first responders, all first responders, because sometimes you see things that the general public doesn't. So I have information, and if you'd like to consider, I'd be glad to help facilitate. I'd be glad to do my part for that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would say if that's something we wanted to tackle this year, might be a good topic for a training in a work session set. What do you think?
I don't know what the possibilities are, and I don't know that I was coming here to talk to first responders, thinking that you're the ones who are out there and might see where this could be possible. If we wanted to attend, I think we would need to do that. It was 3 hours is what I attended. It certainly could have been for 6, but if you decide
If I may.
yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was a topic that was worth bringing to city council.
Your Honor, City Council, in my previous career, this is something that is taught and expanded upon. It's important to educate hotels as far as what to look for, what to observe, because they may miss it. But once they're educated on that, they see something on a daily basis, they call us and we're able to investigate and see. There are some telltale signs that comes with human trafficking, and they're pretty easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. So that wouldn't be something very difficult to do. And the State Patrol also has a dedicated unit that does enforce human trafficking on the highways that we see.
Thank you for that information. I think it was just eye-opening to me as a professional and as a community member.
Unfortunately, it is a disturbing issue that happens in our society from time to time.
Yes.
And in outlying areas of small rural areas, it can be expanded upon because a lot of people aren't aware of what's going on. And it happens underneath your nose.
You sure does. The training, the person who did the training, and who's actually going to call me right this second, came out of Summit County, but came to Eagle County, which is where I am employed, But it seems to be on fire to get that information out and about in the resort communities. Thank you for entertaining that, thinking through it, and I'd be glad to do it.
I just wonder if that could be a dual training opportunity, police department, sheriff's office, but also EMS, also fire department. These are all our first responders, and they're the ones who see things that you suggest that we never see.
It can also apply to the hospitals as well.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because that is someplace they will go when they're having an issue, there's some telltale signs to watch for.
And we have advocates and we have a lot of different systems in Lake County that deal with, you know, people in general and may know more about this than we care to know.
Yes, sir.
Dana has her hand up.
Yeah.
Dana, yes, please.
Yeah, kind of on a related issue. I do not know if the city already does this, but I was thinking, especially with the new restrooms going up at the visitor center, you know, you'll often see bilingual signs in restrooms for people to contact, like the national trafficking hotline, you know, so if someone's in there, they have access to information. And if we're not doing that in our public restrooms, I think it would be a reasonable thing to pursue.
I think that I brought you I think I brought you both versions, English and Spanish of the paper.
Yes.
Okay,
At this time, we can post it in the Zeiss Park,
sure.
and then we're not with these new guys, we can put them in there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dana.
Yeah. Thank you for.
All right,
thank you.
thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, thanks very much. At this time, we would love to hear from our adoring public. If anybody in the public would like to speak to city council on items that are not on the agenda, please come introduce yourself, give us your address. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. I'm here to talk tonight about the Leadville PD. In particular, the situation with Chief Hal Edwards, former Chief Hal Edwards, and the concerns brought forth by the officers in the 2 months ago. I know you all get a lot more information than the public does, especially in cases like this. And I don't envy your position. I'm sure it's a difficult situation. From the outside, it looks very concerning. From the outside, based on what's been reported and the information that is public, it looks like concerns were essentially fabricated against him, and then he's the one who ends up on leave. I'm not sure what direction that's going. If that's not the case, we don't know about it. If that's not the case, it hasn't been communicated, but that is what the case appears to be. I'm concerned about it because it has greatly harmed an individual in Stanley, Hal Edwards specifically. I'm concerned about it because it makes me wonder, did these officers act with integrity when they reported these things, or did they not? It definitely makes me question my trust of the department at a time when law enforcement throughout our community is really in a position of needing to earn back a lot of trust, both of the sheriff's department and the city police department. So I'm here to petition you, the council, the elected officials in charge of accountability in our city. Please continue to keep a critical eye on this situation. Did Chief Edwards do anything to warrant this? How much money is this costing the taxpayers to manage? Was it handled well? Are those officers fit for duty? Are they of high integrity? Police officers have a lot of power, and I only, as a community member and an advocate for other community members, I only want to see people with high integrity with that power. So I just am requesting that you keep your eye on it and continue to advocate for justice in this situation. And I also know that there might be info that I'm missing, so requesting more than preaching here this evening. That's all I got.
Thank you, Cisco.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak as well?
Yes.
Please.
Thanks, council members and mayor. My name is Devin Cannell. I am also here to speak on the topic of Chief Hal Edwards, and I won't reiterate all the points Cisco made. I can say that I agree with most of them. I am also concerned, just looking from the outside as a community member. I know there have been comments on the reasons that this has all been brought forth, but it's the timing of everything that happened, along with some of the other factors, do look very concerning from the outside. And without more information, the public, at least some public, are only led to believe that is due to those concerning factors and not to potential HR issues or other things that may have come up. Again, we only know what we know, and I understand we may never know more. I get that that's just sometimes a part of the reality of HR issues, but I thought you all would want to know that there are members in the public that are concerned about how it looks, and it does have an effect on how we feel about the integrity of both the police force, but the management of the city as well. And personally, I can just say I did go through the recruitment process to be a police officer in the city, and I chose not to move forward for personal reasons. But what I saw from a professionalism standpoint, when Hal was recruiting me and teaching me about the police force as well as officers, there was a lot of professionalism, complete professionalism coming from the top. And I can't say that about everyone in the police force. I'm not saying everyone was unprofessional, but there was a lot of conversation, a lot of negativity towards Hal for things that weren't in his control, like vaccine mandates, mask mandates during an epidemic when police officers are going into houses. And officers said they would potentially leave the police force if Hal kept those requirements. Which again, from the outside is very concerning. I don't know who brought forth those concerns, but if it did happen to be from such individuals, I would be quite concerned about their integrity over Chief Edwards. Again, I reiterate what Cisco said. Don't envy your position. I know it's really difficult. I know these matters are not cut and dry, and I know that we don't have all the information. But wanted to communicate kind of my experience and again, one perspective from the public. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for taking the time to come talk to us. Anyone else in the public who'd like to speak on items not on the agenda? Okay, great. At this time, we have consent agenda approval of January 17th, 2003 minutes. I have a number of things that I'd like to see corrected.
Those to remove the next one, the consent agenda.
Lou Mandel seconds.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. At this time, we're considering the minutes. Does anybody else have any issues with the minutes?
Go for it, Mayor.
Well, one of it's just, it's minor. It's on page 2. It's talk about cybersecurity, and they talk about CIRSA, which is, it's CIRSA, not CERSA. So that's just an improper acronym. In the off-highway vehicle ordinance on the 3rd bullet, they said, it says in here essentially a ban, which is not correct. That's not what the county has discussed. Don't know how that got relayed that way, but that's not what was discussed by the county. That was one of several options, but this is talking about an enforcement model that's essentially a ban, which is not correct. And the third thing on the next page, the appointment of Barb Aveda, it says the appointment was made by Dan Osborne, which is incorrect. That appointment is made by the mayor with the approval of city council. Oh, and I do have another one, sorry. Under mayor's report, it says mining museum has displays from the House of God, which is not correct. We're negotiating displays that they want to have. at the Biden Museum that are currently still at the House of the Art. Anybody else have any changes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with changes mentioned.
What's to approve the minutes?
Yeah. Yes, minutes.
The amendments that were mentioned. Then seconds.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. At this time, we have year in review.
Well, great. Good evening. I wanted to take a little bit of time at the beginning of the year to talk about 2022. Oftentimes I think we start a new year and we hit the ground running and we don't really take a step back and reflect on the accomplishments of the prior year. And there were a lot. I think why I wanted to do this is in part why a lot of the staff is here tonight is to recognize what goes into running a city and what it takes. And in general, just to reflect on 2022 before we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of 2023. So if you can, I put this quote in here. So it's from Robert Louis Stevens. It is the mark of good action that it appears inevitable in retrospect. And I thought this was really good because I think, the city council took some bold action in 2022. And, I think in retrospect, years from now, it will appear to be an inevitable action in that it is good and it was something that was necessary, but it seemed very bold at the time. So I thought that was a good quote to start this with. So I wanted to talk first about why are we here? What is the function of a city government? And I think this is what sometimes gets lost in the shuffle and what I want to appreciate from my perspective and the people who work in the city. Number one, we provide essential services. And oftentimes those go unnoticed unless they don't go well. So I wanted to point out things went well in 2022. This is my quote, keeping the wheels on the bus. So if we want to talk about the essential services, we're talking about streets, fire, animal shelter, finance department. We'll talk about all these departments, but it is essentially providing those services the citizens expect without incident. And oftentimes when you don't hear about it, it means that things are going well and we are keeping the wheels on the bus. The second thing I think key city government functions from my perspective, at least for 2022, preserving and honoring our past. I think that's incredibly important for the city of Leadville. And this is the quote from the mayor. You may not recognize this is from him. Our history is key to our economy. And this is one little tidbit of information. I'm not sure if y'all saw it, just about a week ago, Governor Polis posted on Facebook a picture of the city of Leadville and just noted that, the city of Leadville is one of the highest incorporated cities, is the highest incorporated city in Colorado. And then there were just tons and tons of comments about that. And you know what everybody said? I love Leadville. I used to live there. I love Leadville. I visited there. I love Leadville. So preserving and honoring our past is a huge part of our economy. It's a huge part of why we all live here and why people love Leadville. The third thing is planning for our future, and the city council took some huge steps toward this year. But I wish actually former council member Tharp was still here. This is his quote, the mountain town that got it right. He said, I want Leadville to be the mountain town that got it right. And we are at an exciting time, just talked to Chapin about this today. Leadville is at an exciting time where we can plan for development and manage our development and make sure Leadville looks how we want it to look for years to come. So those are the key city government functions that I thought of for 2022. So let's talk about essential services for a second. Thomas Jefferson, public service is a public trust. So I have observed here within the city of Leadville, that city employees provide that public trust every day. So if you look at what cities are responsible for in our jurisdiction and sort of our purview, the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. That's it. That's what our city government does. And I see on a daily basis and have had the opportunity to observe our dedicated city employees provide that public trust on a daily basis. So how do we provide those essential services? Next slide, please. This is how we provide it. We have, these are the city departments: administration department, animal shelter, fire, municipal court, planning department, police department, streets department. That's how we provide the essential services for the city. So what I asked each department to do, you can go to the next slide. What I asked each department to do is just provide me some information, and we'll get to some numbers about different departments. But what is it that this department does to keep the wheels on the bus? So administration department is probably one of the departments that's the least seen unless you come to City Hall. But essentially, this is the department that ensures that everybody else can do their jobs. Managing and implementing the budget, making sure payroll is paid, paying bills. Also just plain old keeping the lights on at City Hall. This is everything from cybersecurity to, making sure our website is up and the packets are available on the website. Providing information. So this is the key. Yeah, thank you. Next slide. Those are the key things. These are some data points that I like to talk about. These are some of the things that the public sees. So what I talked about behind the scenes, these are more of the front of the house type of services the city provides. So by our code, we have certain things: permits, certificates of appropriateness, licenses. This is part of city government to manage the regulations of these. So just wanted to give a little snapshot. We probably will do this every year, take a look at the numbers. You'll see that, essentially things have remained relatively the same between 2021 and 2022. We have a lot more filming permits. But that's a joke. But I think, there's some things that we look at, and excavation permits are big things for us. Other things, 383 business licenses in 2022. One of the things that I really credit our deputy city clerk's office on working on is getting all those renewed. So when we had a lack of staff, we weren't making sure those were being renewed. And so this is a way for us to understand who's doing business in our community and making sure that people are up to date on their licenses. You also see 170 short-term rental licenses issued in 2022. And that's the number that's based upon the percentage cap that the city council has implemented. But what I'd like to do is, come back every year and kind of give you the snapshot of different departments. And these are the public facing ones from the administration department. So, and you notice these are in alphabetical order, no particular order other than alphabetical. So animal shelter. I would like to say that perhaps a good snapshot of how a community is how it treats the animals in its community. And so 119 adoptions, that's about one adoption every 3 days. And Hannah, can you skip to the next slide? Oh, one more. Oh, did we lose the slide? We may have lost a slide. Okay, I had a picture in there of some very happy adoptions. But I think that the testament to the animal shelter is, it is a hard position. They see a lot of animals that maybe are in distress when they come, and they are very good at pairing animals with homes, which is a good part of what our community does. But you can also see, we had some impounds. We had 161 animals returned to owner. The animal shelter has been very good about seeking out money. So $4,000 in donations and $10,000 in grants. If you will scroll, animal shelter, big changes is also Caitlin brought on animal shelter assistant manager. So Jenna Gildrich is actually very great at helping out, and we are grateful to have her. She came from the Ark Valley Animal Shelter, so that's great to get that staffing in place. And on the lines of staffing, this is exactly, next slide is this. We are now fully staffed, which has been an effort in persistence by the animal shelter, and we're really pleased that we have full staffing for our kennel techs. And the work isn't easy. A lot of people think that it's, you have to spend a lot of time with animals. It's sometimes, a little tough emotionally. There's a lot of burnout in this field, and I appreciate Caitlin's leadership in turning the animal shelter around and really working to build the staff and improve the service that we're providing. Okay. So fire department, this is, talk about health and safety, reducing community risk through excellence in emergency services. So these are all the smiling faces. Yeah, we got all A, B, and C company, and then you got your chiefs there. So, yeah, we'll talk about the data. So I'm grateful to the fire department. Chief Daly has taken many years to build this department, make sure that we are reducing turnover and have steady leadership and stability in the department. And I credit his leadership for that. It's taken a long time, and we have a stable department. We have a fire department that is responsive. In fact, there were a number of structure fires in the last few days, and the fire department was on it. Took care of the fire and actually took care of many of the occupants that needed assistance. And so that's a testament to our community, that we have such an amazingly responsive, dedicated fire department. So you can see some of the number of incidents. This is just to give you a snapshot. You can see incidents were a little bit less, but due to some reporting that may not be going forward, you may not see that. You may see it's more steady. The interesting thing that Chief Daly flagged was the auto accidents are sort of the recurring emergency that we're seeing more and more. And I think that may be in part because of the nature of our community as a tourism economy and the fact that a lot of our workers commute out of the community. But you can see what I'd like. I just wanted to do a little snapshot there. You've got your top 3 types of calls there. Number 1 being rescue and emergency medical services. And then number 2 is service calls, and then 3 is hazardous condition notified. So thank you for the next slide. So this, I'm not gonna belabor all these points. This is a summary of a lot of the things that the fire department worked on this year. And the 2 top things you'll see are equipment. And we were very grateful and fortunate that the fire department was able to acquire some fantastic new equipment. One was the consultant mentioned a screening deal, so we're excited to be able to see that equipment in 2023. But I wanted to point out the center part of the slide, and this is something I highlighted at the animal shelter as well. We have department heads that are very good with the money. They are chasing money, and I would have to say Chief Daly is one of the department heads who's really good at chasing the money. So you can see there are a number of the grants and a number of ways that he will stretch the dollar so that he can provide more services to the community without necessarily tipping into the general fund and his own budget. But you can see the number of grants there, and I'm really proud of that. And then, the last couple of things we've got as far as resources, Station 2 is making significant progress, and we appreciate everybody's patience on that. That'll be a great asset for the community when it opens. And then also, as I was emphasizing, building the community, the core of the fire department. 15 cadets graduated from CMC. And that is really our program to bring the good talent up through our fire department. And I credit the chief for putting that together. And really, I think it's very nice to see that young college students want to join our fire department, and we have a reputable department to do that. So thank you. So municipal court. This is a fantastic opportunity to highlight some of the things. We are very lucky to have Judge Floyd. She is a go-getter, as you all know. She does so many things for our community, but I wanted to take time today to highlight municipal court because there's a lot of things we're doing to improve municipal court here. And it is a service that's provided to our community. It is sometimes a system that people do not want to be in, but it's a system that we can improve. And so if you look here, electronic filing, a lot of technology improvements here, which I think are fantastic, and efficiency improvements. And I think one of the things that Judge Floyd brought up in a council meeting previously, a concern that she had about not seeing tickets being written into her court. And I want to let you know that's been addressed. We have met with her, and that situation is rectifying. Interim chief met with her, and that is a situation that we have turned around. And so I think with the technology improvements and Judge Floyd's enthusiasm and energy to work with our community, I think we're seeing great improvements. The other thing I'd like to highlight is you know, this year, we've emphasized employee retention. And so we brought the municipal court clerk position back into the city where it had been contracted out. And that's an important thing. And I appreciate Hannah being here. She's taken on that task and has done a fantastic job. And so we're happy to have that stability. I think it's important, but that's been a big thing for stability for the municipal court this year. So planning department, okay, two things. One, you have a planning department. Two, my joke in this is, yes, you did hire a Viking. This is fantastic news. You know what I talked about, planning for the future. So this is you know, city council approved creation of this position. This is something I think that when you look at that quote that I put at the beginning of the presentation is inevitable in retrospect. And this will do something that will serve our community for years to come, to plan instead of react to how we want to look, to plan how we want to look. And it's already paying dividends. You know, we are, Chapin is quickly mastering our municipal code so that when people come in, they get consistent answers and consistent information. And we have someone who can provide them with information about our community. And we also have, we have someone who's monitoring the vision for our community. We have a comprehensive plan that the city spent a lot of time on, and to make sure that that public input document is what's actually being implemented when people come to the city of Leadville. So, you know, while we have some statistics here, I'm going to just say this. This is hugely important for the city of Leadville to make sure we grow as we want to grow and as we desire to grow. And that when 10 years from now, some governor posts on Facebook something about Leadville, the comments don't say, oh, I used to like Leadville, but now it's ruined, or they did this and it's ruined. Like, we want Leadville to be the place that people love for years to come. And I think having a planning director, I thank you for doing that. Thank you for creating that position, because that's hugely important, well beyond these statistics, I think. So 55 city building permits issued in 2022. You can see that's a decrease in large part because of the rail yards development. There were a number of permits issued in 2021. I mean, yes, 2021. And so those were the majority of those in 2021. 7 conditional use permits in 2022. Again, that's a decrease. But again, we see how the reason for that is the lack of short-term rental license availability, which was a purposeful decision on the part of city council. So have any of those? So our police department, we are very proud that the police department recruited and hired 4 new officers who went to the academy and graduated the academy this year. That is a huge commitment on their part and a huge commitment on the city's part. I want to say that I have faith in the integrity of the police department. At the outset, I want to say I believe the city needs a police department. It serves a very important health and safety function. And I also, just as an aside, I do not believe that any of the officers fabricated anything that was involved in the investigation. We can't get into that part, but I want to say the police department their community service officers and officers are serving our department, actively patrolling and caring for our community. And when we get to the next slide, we'll get to the next slide, and it's an interesting statistic about our community. So I want to say we also hired a great supervisory administrator. Perla Flores has stepped in, and she and Joanna Lopez are also getting extensive training. This is good for them. They are coming along very well. They are soaking up training and knowledge that Chief is providing them, and they have a bit of a learning curve, but we're on a good trajectory with that. Okay, next slide. This is total calls for service. And, I'm not sure what we can read into that, but total calls for service are declining. Could that just generally be a trend in crime or not? Probably it's not necessarily a bad thing that the calls are declining, but it's the next slide that I wanted to highlight here. Top 3 types of calls for service within city limits. I don't know, do you all see what I see in this? Parking problem, business check, informational. That does say something about our community. The top 3 calls are not gang violence, drug use, I mean, so what we're starting from is a good foundation in our community. It doesn't mean we don't have needs. Of course, we have needs in our community that require policing and enforcement and code enforcement and all the things that are necessary. But what I see in this is we are not starting out from a hole. We're not starting out from a problem. We're starting out from a good community. The last thing I want to point out on this slide, okay, this is, do you see everybody's like kind of hugging and touching and smiling? Do you see that? And except for there's two people who are not touching and hugging. Do you see that? Okay, I just want to point out those two are sisters. Of all the people who are, I actually thought that was kind of cute. It isn't because they don't like each other. I just wanted to point that out. So those are, that's, I think, quite telling about our community. Okay, thank you. So I'm talking about other essential services. Obviously, streets are a very big essential service in our community. So if you look at the things that I put at the top here, snow removal, snow plowing, road sanding. The streets department spends a lot of time maintaining our streets so that we can get ourselves around in the winter. And I give them a lot of tribute and credit. So, you know, what I've learned is that it is almost a 24/7 job for our streets department. So if there's a forecast for snow, our streets department manager is up at midnight checking the weather to see whether or not the crew needs to be mobilized. If there is snow, the crew's mobilized at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, what we have heard this year are lots and lots of compliments. I've heard compliments from business owners, other partners within the city that the streets look really good. This is what I'm saying about the essential services. Oftentimes you don't hear when things go right. So my job tonight is to tell you the things that are going right. And, you know, people are very pleased with how the streets department is doing. And it is a constant job. So if they're not plowing the snow, they're clearing the piles for when the next snow comes, or they're cutting the ice. And so it is a constant, you know, planning for the future. As far as, you know, summer months, you can look at trash pickup. Those are, you know, it picks up in the summer when we have events, and covering special events. Those are our big events which usually, other than ski touring, happen in the summer. And then of course, in-kind help. We have a good relationship with the county and a good partnership. You can't see that photo as well, but the streets department is doing their best to look very, very, very tough and very strong. The only person who's kind of cracking a smile there is Marvin, and I'm gonna tease him a little bit about that. But they are a really good crew. And if you go to the next slide. You know, one of the things I think is this year we hired a new street department manager, and he has been fantastic. Jim Schneider's shoes were big to fill. And Tony has made it clear he's not Jim. But he's guiding and leading that department in his own way and doing a really fantastic job with that. And really, like I said, a good crew and good leadership. So summer months in 2022, the city was able to pave 11 blocks, which was in part due to the paving budget that accumulated over the past few years. And so this is the stuff that folks do get to see and that we can prioritize, and it does make our community look better. It's easier for people to get around. These are the things we like to highlight that the city's able to accomplish. And this is a big project for our streets department. We were a little nail biting towards the end to make sure we got it finished before the snow started flying, but I would say it was a very successful summer as far as paving. So as I mentioned, streets department manager Tony Medina is doing a fantastic job. We also are fully staffed in the streets department for the first time in a long time, which makes a big difference. And it really does help in a lot of this stuff you're seeing, with the ability to move snow in the winter. And a couple of new pieces of equipment, a new grader, a new street sweeper, and also the new U-blades are fantastic. So we've talked about this year is going to be 2023's people, not things. I can't tell you that it's important. The equipment is important. But having a really good staff and a good team to operate it is just as important. So we talked about essential services. I wanted to take a moment to talk about your accomplishments, the city's accomplishments, as far as preserving and honoring our past, because I think that's a huge part of the city of Leadville. So the Tabor Opera House, which is owned by the city, you know, it is an ongoing project. The big thing, I think, is Tabor Opera House Foundation hired Sarah Day, much to the chagrin of us, at the city losing her. She's a fantastic leader for the Tabor Opera House Foundation. And, you know, you've seen a lot of the rehabilitation that's coming along, the ghost sign, the phase 2 exterior building rehabilitation. So hopefully you're just gonna see that continue. I see it as a crown jewel in the city of Leadville. It is a lot of reason why people come here in one of our most historic buildings. The Tabor Home became the home of Lake County Community Fund. So we are happy to host John McMurtry. He does say that he can, in the home here for us in Tabor, fighting over somebody called Baby Doe. And he's wondering what that's all about, but I think that's just John's sense of humor. But we're happy to use that to provide a home for the Lake County Community Fund because they do so much for the community. The house with the eye. So deeded, you know, let's just be clear, free to the city. This, and talk about another gem in historic opportunity for us to preserve something in Leadville. And the city turned around and reopened it as a Leadville museum, and we had 800 visitors. So what an opportunity for the city to provide that historic preservation and honoring and preserving, because it could have gone to, it could have gone to a private party. And it could have been lost as a museum. So we're happy the city has that, and we're happy that so many people without really much advertising came and visited. It is, if you haven't been there, it is a treasure. These are things I really want to highlight the importance of. The city council passed a form-based business overlay to preserve the character of our downtown core. And this is one of those things that inevitably, in retrospect, many years from now, people will realize the importance of this. I want to stress the importance of this. It is very important to maintain the character of our community, to know what we want to look like and take steps towards making sure we look like that. And so I want to credit the city council for having the foresight to put this form-based business overlay in place. I think it is insanely important. You can go to other cities, historic cities, and you can see, you lose these buildings, you may lose them forever. You allow businesses to come in that don't fit the character. They can be there for a really long time. So I think that was very, there was a lot of foresight in that. And Leadville Main Street. So the Leadville Main Street program, you know, it does a lot of things, but it is an opportunity for the city to pursue money and resources and opportunity to preserve our Main Street. You know, the Colorado Main Street program, that's what it exists for, is to help communities like ours maintain our Main Street. And you know, we talk about Leadville being a recreational town and a recreational destination. People might come here to recreate, but they might not come to Leadville. The reason they come to Leadville is because we have this character, we have services, we have things we provide. And so, you know, our Main Street program, everything from making it beautiful in the summer with the flowers to music in the park and those types of programs. I'm happy to say we are going to maintain the Main Street program and make sure it thrives into the future. And we are grateful that Nancy Bailey is going to head that for us. So the President of the United States came to our neighborhood. This is fantastic. So you talk about preserving and honoring our past. This is huge for our community. This is a national monument that will bring visitors here. And I just want to say how proud I am of Leadville, that when the president came and Senator Bennett talked about the meetings that they had with those two gentlemen on the right there, the last two gentlemen who were living, who trained at Camp Hill, they talked about how they dined at the restaurants in Leadville when they met these war heroes. And, you know, when every news article ran about this, you know what AP ran as that location? Leadville, Colorado. It would actually happen in Eagle. But this is, you know, so this is fantastic news for us. The other thing I really want to say I'm proud of is when the presidential motorcade came into the Camp Hill area to declare the national monument, it was the Leadville Police Department that protected the entrance of the Camp Hill National Monument. And I think, you know, that's a proud moment for us. It was you know, national news, and Leadville, if you look at the weather there, it could not have been a more spectacular way to showcase you know, what treasures we have here. So honoring our past and thanking the president for coming and putting Leadville on the national map. So planning for the future, I think you all remember when I started in this position, I said there are two things that I thought was a priority for 2022. Employee retention and housing. Those were two critical issues that I saw and I knew even before I came here. And I just want to thank the city and city council for addressing those two issues straight on in 2022. So employee retention. So this is a lot. This is a lot to have accomplished in 2022. And I think these are things we should be proud of. So the city council committed $264,000 of its ARPA money towards employee retention bonuses. And I just want to say, it worked. You look at the 95% is really kind of a hard number. One employee left, the other retired. That's the 95%. So employee retention, like I said, we can make, we can increase salaries, which I think is very, very, very important. But we also need to make City Hall a good place to work. And I think this was a testament from the city council, that we do value employees and employee retention is important. The city council was, I applaud the city council for choosing to provide 100% of the premium towards employees who want to opt into the family program. That speaks a lot. When we come up and say employees are important, and the equipment doesn't matter if you don't have employees, this is putting your money where your mouth is. And so I want to thank the city council for doing that. The 4% cost of living increase that we provided mid-year, and then the end of year cost of living increase as well. Keeping our employees at pace, or at least trying to keep them at pace with the marketplace, has been incredibly important. And so I thank the city council for doing that. That is huge towards employee retention. And then the creation of a human resources director position and the recommendation of a wellness committee. Every single one of these steps is something where you have said we put our money where our mouth is, that we do value the employees, and that without them, we can't keep the wheels on the bus, we can't plan for the future, and we can't preserve our past. It's that simple. So housing. Housing is such an important topic in our community, and so much discussion has happened around the issue of the lack of housing. I just want to say, you know what, city council, you know what you did? You created housing. You didn't talk about it. You talked about it, but you did it. Like, really, in one fell swoop, you took short-term rental stock and made it housing stock. And that's a huge step. It's been fantastic. It served its purpose. One of our municipal employees is in that house who may not have been able to stay in Leadville, but in city employment, had we not had that housing available. So that's a huge step when we talk, and I go to conferences and I talk to other communities about what they're doing. You know what they say? You know what Leadville did? They have a house. Other communities are behind in acquiring hotels and whatever they can. But this is basically turnkey housing. And so I really applaud the city council for taking that bold move. And then on the next slide, that wasn't it. There's so much more about housing, tackling it, where I said short, medium, and long term. So 809 Spruce, short term. Medium term, you look at the accommodations tax to fund the regional housing director, and then also the regional housing authority. There's plans for the development that's going on at the Laura parcel at the rail yards. There's financial commitments towards obviously Deputy Wellahan's salary and the regional housing authority. So short, medium, long term. And I think that's really important as a community, because I don't think any one solution is going to solve the problem. I think you need to tackle it from multiple aspects. So as the sun sets on 2022, I just want to say thank you. If it's not obvious, I'm insanely proud of all the city employees and everything they did to keep the wheels on the bus and plan and prepare. And they are the hardest group of people that I've ever worked with. That was something that became very obvious to me when I first started. Between the employees, the city council taking on these tough subjects, and our city partners, I think that 2022 was a very good year. There was a lot that was tackled. There's certainly more to be done, but I just like to take a moment and just reflect on the accomplishments and just thank everybody for all their hard work.
Thank you, very much. Good question for Ms. Simons.
On the subject of the accommodation text, came to my attention that we're high on some of the revenue still on the accommodation text. Numbers, about $100,000 worth of it, which seems a bit concerning. I know we talked about the strategy being that we're gonna send them notices that they have to pay their taxes. Is there any updates on that?
Yes, so as you know, one of these, this Paul's our finance director who has a lot on her plate, but she has updated me that she reached out to a number of the businesses who were in arrears. And, you know, she said she called all of them and we had gotten to the point where we were gonna send it, you know, please take care of this. And she let me know, yesterday or the day before, hold off on that because they're actually responding. A lot of people are paying that. So we are in a good position. I think there's, I don't want him to speak, but not more than a handful who I think are still in arrears.
I think the number's two.
Pardon me?
Two people are still in a so the answer is, you know, we originally projected this to be $215,000. Then we thought, as we looked at it early on, that it might be 240, but it actually looks like it's gonna be closer to 215. But that was the original projection and the basis upon which we projected how much we would have for each of these different compartments. So it would look like, and the only reason it fell to 215 is the fourth quarter was weak, very weak. And so anyway, I think it's right where we needed to be, at least right this moment.
More so just worried about paying. I know that we're way above what we assumed that we would have gotten first when we first accepted that bill. When I thought it would get close to the.
We did that.
So we're more caught up than, and it sounds like, it just would require a little bit of nudging, and once people got phone calls, I didn't realize it was down. I thought it was down to like 6 people, but if it's down to 2, that's fantastic.
That's what I saw today. I would also say, I talked to Jackie about a week ago, and she was saying, we only have $50 in our account.
Yes.
And I said, look, I'll go to Donna, and what you can do is bill us X amount, and I'll find out what that number is for you. And then you can bill us again once this has completely settled out. So she did bill us $50,000. And then we assume that there will be another, let's just say another $20,000 after that. I don't know what the exact number will be. But just so you know, she has bills for that. We'll be paying her the $50,000. So they'll have money to work with.
As long as it's getting done, it's the first year, there's gonna be some hiccups, that's fine.
I think it's gone, the hiccup was in the first month.
Obviously,
After that, the city made up that difference, and since then, it's actually gone pretty smooth. People have really gotten on board.
We've generally found that to be the case, especially with, you know, we've talked about this with, you know, short-term rental, business licenses. We get the people who aren't complying and contact them, and usually they're compliant. We haven't ever come down to, you know, any drastic action needed, so.
good to know, thank you.
Yep. Great, thank you.
Thank you for that.
I do want to make a comment. I cannot be more pleased with lawyers or city administrator, and by that I mean, it takes a while to really understand this job. It is not simple, it's difficult, it's trying, it's stressful, and it hasn't been easy. But I would say this, at this point, so in the first year, our relationship has been, I kind of supplied the institutional knowledge of where the city is and giving her advice that she listens to. We're almost to the point where she doesn't need that anymore. I'm serious. So that feels really good to me, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, it's been a very good partnership, and I appreciate all of the support, and I appreciate, like I said, if it isn't clear, the absolute heavy lift of all the city employees, and then the city council tackling a lot of really important issues and getting things done, and I really think that speaks a lot about our community.
Good. Any other questions or thoughts?
I have one Well, I'll say it for a different date.
Okay, thank you, Chris. At this time, we have, Ski Joint made a presentation, because I don't know if they're gonna be here tonight, nothing's gonna be here tonight, but each year for the last couple of years, we've had $6,000. It wasn't in the budget as a budget line item, it was in the contingency budget line item as a note. And I thought it was in this year, but it's not. And so Duffy would like to do the videos again this year. We've had the last 2 years where they've shown Ski Joint on Altitude Network. It's entirely up to city council. I have thought it was a good idea. I thought it was money well spent. But it is not technically in the budget right now. So if we are going to support Ski Joint with the video, that then goes regionally, I don't know if it goes nationwide, but it certainly is regional on Altitude Network. Then we would need to have a motion and take a vote tonight. Are there any thoughts on that from city council?
And just to be clear, it would come out of the contingency.
Right, which I think we had about $38,000 set aside in the contingent line item this year.
What is the benefit to us to do that?
Pride, advertising, is pride and ownership kind of thing. I don't know if you can quantify it.
Oh, I believe Dana, Councilmember Green has her hand up.
Dana, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my understanding was it was an excellent opportunity for our local businesses to get advertising on a wider platform and spread more information about this rather curious hobby, wintertime hobby that we have and other winter communities have. Just as a short side story, my friend's daughter, who's now attending American University in Washington, DC, had an assignment to write an essay on kind of a topic of their choice. She chose Ski Joint and got a number of very perplexed questions from the professor. It was clearly a completely novel idea to those people in back east, and questions such as, do they train the horses for this, and what do they do in the summer? And anyway, I think it provides Leadville in particular with a venue to get more publicity and share this unique and fun wintertime activity, plus advertising.
Thank you, Dana. Max, any thoughts?
No, not at this time. Great presentation, Lori. Thank you for giving us the year in review.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any thoughts? Is this something as a city council we think is worthwhile? I guess that's a simple question.
I guess personally, I don't know, no disrespect to our local businesses, wouldn't support them all, and I try to go as much local as I can. But if it makes sense for the city to be the one subsidizing that big, if it's benefiting businesses, I know it helps us grow as a community, but at the end of the day, primary growers would be the businesses, not necessarily, and obviously our culture, and what we're doing, but. And that part is the part of me that's like, well, it helps explain what we do and let it go to other people. That's good. But to me, it feels like, does it really make sense that it's just the city? And maybe I'm misinformed and it's not just the city paying this, but.
No, I think it's correct. It would be the city paying this.
Does it really make sense for just the city to pay it? And would it be too much of an ask to ask other people to pitch into? Maybe not this year, but very least food for thought for following years, because it's not just a benefit to the city, it's also obviously a benefit to our local businesses.
I think to your point that maybe it helps the city grow. My opinion is I hope not. But on the other hand, I think it is a matter of pride. And I'll also tell you a story. About 15 years ago, I don't remember the exact, I had a whole lot of friends. We were all on this relay team, and they were gonna have this premiere of a Warren Miller film at the Boulder Theater. And so we all went as a group. We all went as a big group. There were like 15 of us there. And we didn't, there's a Warren Miller film, and so we're watching this film, and part of the Warren Miller film was ski joring in Leadville. And I have to tell you, it was such a proud moment. It just, that's the best way I can explain it. I was just tickled to death. To share that with my friends, even though I didn't know it was gonna be part of a film. We have a conversation. I would, if anybody would like to make a motion, I would entertain a motion.
As a business owner, do you reap any benefit from that? That you know of?
I would say as a business owner on Harrison Avenue, I'm not sure that I actually do reap any benefit from the event. Because the avenue's closed. I don't have anything to compare it to because, well, I guess we did have the 1 year pandemic year where it didn't happen on the avenue.
No, but do you feel like you reap any benefit from the
$6,000,
from the televising?
it would be residual. I do. I don't have.
Just people saw that it was Leadville and, decided to come up here for whatever reason.
We're at that business we donate to. Ski Joe Guppy does solicit businesses for donations.
Okay.
They do donate.
Well, we see the banner on
Not
the
enough to do the film, but. I mean, I don't have a problem with city funding the film, but. I would say the benefit to someone like me is small.
Would anybody like to make a motion?
Green moves to supply $6,000 to Leadville Ski Joring for video equipment and productions.
Regency seconds.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Then let's do roll call, please.
Councilmember Cook,
Yes.
Councilmember Lilloye,
Yeah.
Councilmember Benson absent, Councilmember Pergenzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant. No. Mayor Lobby
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Green.
Yes.
Thank you all. Very good discussion. Appreciate it. We will let Joring know that we can accommodate for this year, but I might make it clear to them that there was a debate in city council about the future of that and how it might need to be maybe more subsidized by businesses who feel that this has value. So sound fair to everybody? Yep. Thank you very much. At this time, we have resolution number 3, series of 2023, a resolution adopting an updated fee schedule. This is something we do every year. We revisit our fee schedule. This year, it feels that we're probably paying more attention to the fee schedule than we have in the past because Lori has really kind of dug into it with department managers. So, Lori, would you like to take the lead on this?
Sure, I wanted to lay a little bit of the groundwork on this as far as fees. Previously we had fees buried in our municipal code with each section, and the city did a very smart thing and put all the fees into a fee schedule, and which is a great document to have, because then the fees aren't in ordinance, you don't have to change an ordinance. And so I think it's just good fiscal management practice to take a look at, the city's fees at least once a year. And so that's what I am asking the council to do, is take a look at these. And as background, just a little bit on the difference between fees and taxes. The fees are to serve a very specific purpose. And that is to defray the cost of a certain service that a city provides. And have the entity who is receiving that service subsidize the cost rather than all taxpayers. So if you look at streets, everybody pays their taxes, it goes into streets, because, you know, we generally feel as though most people receive equal benefit of that. But if you look at, the memo talks about certain types of common municipal fees or inspection fees, licensing fees, permitting fees, servicing fees. Those are types of fees that the city's providing specific service to a specific entity who is the beneficiary of that. And we feel as though that should be subsidized. And the reason I say subsidized is most fees don't cover the entire cost of the service the city provides. You know, say, for example, business licenses, you know, the fee is $50. But that doesn't cover the cost of what the city does to prepare and send out the notices, manage it, keep track of it, remind businesses, manage, you know, the information we get from businesses, the questions that come in. So we usually look at it as defraying some of the cost of a service rather than having the taxpayers bear all that burden. And so what I asked all the departments to do is to take a look at that master fee schedule that the city adopted in 2022. And let's just take a look at it and make sure our fees are accurate. And by that, I mean, I wanted to have the departments look at what is the potential cost? Are we providing a service that we're charging no cost for, and that doesn't make any sense? Or are we providing a service and we are either over or undercharging for that cost? And in looking at that and analyzing that, I asked the departments to look at fees in similar communities. And so with all that background, that's what you have is you have an updated fee schedule. I guess what I'm going to say to the council is we don't have a huge vested interest in what necessarily the outcome of any specific fee. What we want the fees to be is fair, and we want them to be looked at every year. So if we look at the fee and we want to debate tonight, what is the perfect fee? I'm not sure we would know the perfect fee. What we want to know is what is a fair fee, and then perhaps on some of these, we may decide to leave it be or change it, but then revisit it again in a year. So that's where we are with this. Is I feel like this is something we should do at the beginning of every year, and we should, whether or not we change fees or we leave everything the same, we should be looking at it as a good fiscal management practice. We should look at it every year. And so for many of these, you'll see there, so there's not just the resolution, but there's the fee schedule, which has been redlined and updated so you can see, but also some of the departments have provided background on why there is they feel a change in the fee that's necessary. So I don't, Mayor, know how you want to handle that part of it. My job was just to have you all look at it and decide if we're on the right track with these. And we can either change them or leave them in place, but this is an exercise we'll go through every year. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to have perfection be the obstacle to action in this case.
I do have a question. I think I know the answer to it. A lot of times in these liquor and marijuana licensing fees, it is my understanding that these are often dictated by the state. Are they dictated by the state for our local fees as well as the state fees?
I think the local decides what they want, and then the state fees are in addition to. I consolidated the retail and medical into one fee schedule because it was just redundant and it was basically the same thing.
Right. Thank you.
And I used the Buena Vista's fee schedule to compare.
Okay. So as we look at these, so is there anything that stands out that somebody would like to discuss or maybe challenge that fee as being too high or too low?
And the planning fees are changing substantially, so I'd be happy to give to go in depth on that as much as the council needs.
We'll see if council has questions about that.
Well, I would actually, I actually wouldn't mind, Chapin explaining, because there is a rationale behind some of those fees that I think. Isn't self-explanatory, so if you wouldn't just mind giving a few minutes.
So the main point with the planning fees is previously the city, before you had a planning staff member here, you were using consultants for both planning review and engineering review. So I say planning review, that's gonna be things like your site plans, your conditional use permits, et cetera, including subdivision review. And then engineering review would be things like construction documents for plans for the rail yard, for example, for subdivision improvements, those sorts of things. So the main point here is that now that you have a planning staff member being me, you are no longer going to be paying consultants to review applications. The one exception to that would be, I'm not a civil engineer, so if I need a civil engineer to review construction drawings for a big project, we would still need that. So previously an applicant, if they were coming in for a really big development for a subdivision and a conditional use permit and a site plan, they're going to be paying $3,250 approximately if you add up all the consultant fees and the application fees. With this proposed fee schedule, they would just be paying the application fees, which would be increasing to essentially to offset the fact that you're no longer charging this consultant, but you are employing me.
Average out to the same amount?
It's actually less. Yeah, it depends on the application and the number of public hearings, but generally speaking, less.
And the way that it generally would work is we would have the applicant put a deposit down. And those deposits are substantial, and so then depending on how much the consultant would cost. We would put that towards the deposit, and if there was money left over, we would refund the deposit back to the applicant, but in essence, it will be less.
I can understand for big building projects, but what about somebody who just wants to build a garage? Give me some insight into what that would cost a typical citizen to build a garage.
So, right, I mean, under the current code, that would be administratively reviewed and be a by right development, so that would not even require an application, so that would be a sign off on the building permit
So there would
application.
be
There'd be no
review charges?
No.
Okay,
it would
so
be sign off just.
For our standpoint, we would be that would be pretty fair to.
Yeah, to maybe get a little bit closer to where you're trying to go, for example,
Yeah.
like an insubstantial modification for a certificate of appropriateness for something within the historic district on a historic structure, something that's subject to the fee would actually go down, go from $125 to $75. And that gets back to some of the things we talked about with the historic preservation amendments and trying to make things more reasonable for those who live and work here.
That's nice to hear, thank you.
But there's a memo on page 52 to 54 that kind of explains the breaks down the changes to the fee schedule for planning.
Some of these charges for, marijuana, I mean, it's not like I have a problem with them. I mean, are we charging that much because they can afford it? Or are we charging that much because that's our cost?
Well, so fees cannot be based upon what someone can afford. You can choose to waive a fee as far as affordability, but no fees. As the memo said, there's no mathematical exaction necessary, but fees can't exceed the cost it would be for the city to provide that service. So just because someone can afford a lot of money, doesn't mean you can charge them that. You can't make a profit. So fees cannot exceed the cost. And we've looked at this, and we really feel like the fee schedule is less than most of the time the city's cost. But yeah, you can't make a profit on a fee. And the other thing about a lot of the fees is we've compared ours to similar communities to make sure that if we said, okay, look, this is what we think our cost is, and then we look and we're way above the ballpark of any of our similar communities, then we would back it down.
Okay. Pardon me? Oh, thanks. Hey, Max.
Hey, I have a quick question. Is there any fee waivers or exemptions in our code specific to should we have fee waivers or exemptions for certain types of fees or certain type of situations?
Great question, Councilmember Fergensi. So what I have tried to do since I started is look at how we handle fee waivers. I do not want fee waivers to be indiscriminate. And so we generally have request for fee waiver from a nonprofit is granted. And then any other request for fee waivers, I have said that I would like them to come to me so that we are being equitable with them. And as far as, so it's an administrative policy, and we have not had requests for fee waivers from, I think, anyone that I'm aware of that wasn't a nonprofit so far.
Just curious, and I mean, from my normal line of work, nonprofits do not get a fee waiver, and the only reason why is that they may not be for profit. However, the folks that are, they're still a business, and so like if we're going to give it to nonprofits, it's fine. But we don't give fee waivers in the Forest Service to nonprofits.
Yeah, the one that honestly, I'll just, the Tabor Opera House is one that we have waived the fee on, and I kind of see the reason behind that because, it's our own entity to begin with. And so, looking at that, do we, are we giving the Tabor Opera House Foundation money just to pay us back in fees?
It's true. Something, I don't know if we don't have it in code or whatever, I guess it's a moot point. However, one waiver that we have that, and I don't know where it would actually apply. Maybe if it was with the county. We provide waivers to entities that if we were applying for the same use in their arena, perhaps they would give us a waiver as well. So that meaning like if the county was to come here, we would probably provide them a waiver for their fee, right? Because
And that's been reciprocal between the city and county in the past. So I think that's a great example.
Yeah, Max, that's actually a good example. That reminded me of another fee waiver. So we did waive a fee for the Community Justice Center.
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Yep. Yep.
Now the only question I have is, should it be codified for what a waiver is?
Christiana would like to say something.
Christiana has her name, and her hand raised. Let's see what she has to add. Christiana, please.
Thanks, Mayor. One example of where the city's municipal code does provide for fee waivers is in the zoning code. So for example, section 1796.020 has a section on fee requirements and exemptions. And one of the exemptions is city departments and agencies, boards and commissions. And then that section also allows the city council to consider a written request of a public agency. So for example, Lake County, or a not-for-profit applicant who's requesting either an adjustment or an exemption. So that, at least for zoning fees, is codified currently.
Thank you, Christiana. Okay. And
Thumbs up, thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody looking at the fee schedule? Is there anything that anybody would like to change in the fee schedule?
I guess I have a question with the fire rescue one. Residential plan review is $50, but short-term rental, new STR is $40. Is there?
So, yeah, so the short-term rental is an inspection that Chief Boyle actually goes out, does their initial inspection of their home, making sure that it's safe to be able to rent out to our visitors.
Yeah.
And then that's just a one-time, yeah, that's a one-time. And then the other one that you're looking at, the residential, that's actual plan reviews. For code requirements.
Makes sense.
But I would also say sometimes Chief Boyle have to tell people, okay, these 3 things need to be done, you know, before I can give you the inspection. And when he comes back out, he charges another $40. I mean, it's only fair because they just weren't ready for it the first time and he has to go to the effort of doing an additional inspection. Is that your understanding, chief?
I don't think he charges a second time.
Oh, I'm
Bless
so
his
sorry
heart.
to hear that.
Yeah, bless his heart.
I thought he did, but I,
But he does do follow up and make sure that's corrected.
all right, thank you.
Oh, I did want to make a comment that on the template that I used for the business license renewal this year, there was an incorrect fee stated as a $25 late fee. It was brought to my attention and all businesses who have paid that late fee have been credited $5 and we're changing it, the late fee to be after January 31st and not December 31st to make it easier for business.
Thanks for that, Hannah.
You're
I was gonna bring up business licenses, being a business owner. You said that $50 doesn't cover the administration of that. I would tend to disagree with that. I mean, and also as a business, I'm not sure really what we're getting for that. A business license. I mean, I would compare it to some other things, so. The county does not have this procedure, but they have a sales tax license that you're required to get. That costs $0. The state, you have to get a sales tax license with the state. That costs us $16 and it's good for 2 years, so it's $80 a year. Also having a late fee of 40% seems a little drastic. That's a big penalty. Just wanted to bring it up.
Well, so I guess the question then is, do you, in changing the date for the late fee, you know,
Well, that's a big help.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I paid mine the 3rd of January and had to pay 75 instead of 50, so. That's a little drastic.
yeah, so that's why I want to,
But, you know.
That's
it
why
seems
you
a
wanna
little
do this.
trivial, but
no, it's important.
businesses have to pay. Fee upon license, upon license. You know, I have a lot of permitting fees and user fees. But when I add up my permits, user fees, licensing. For 2021, that was over $13,000. So. You know, business licensing is part of that.
I would say this, I have debated internally with administration whether or not we should even have business licenses. I don't understand what the point is. However, in certain cases, it gives us the ability to have in place rules around a certain type of business. I don't know if there's another way to do that. I've felt for a long time, the business licenses felt a little bit unnecessary. You know, just, that's been my opinion. If you're gonna have a business license and you don't charge anything for it, are people going to still apply for it? It's a value proposition. I don't know if people would, if they're required to have a business license, but there's no charge, why would they bother? It's just, I know it's a little strange, but I've given that some thought. And I still am not necessarily convinced that we need business licenses. However, I'm in the minority on that, so.
We definitely need a lodging tax license.
We have that, sorry.
But the city doesn't collect the sales tax, so I've always been a little curious as to why you require.
I'd like to hear from Lori. on this.
Absolutely. So the answer is in some respect, when you look at the ordinance that you're going to consider later today, this evening, is if you do not have a way to license businesses and you do not have permissions on businesses that operate within your community, then you don't have any tool to decide are we going to give this business a license? You are not deciding what businesses, they just are. They come, they do your business, they do business, and you have no regulation over them. So I do think business licenses serve a important purpose for the community in that you can say, you know what, we're being overrun by X type of business. We're gonna put a moratorium on that X type of business. We're not gonna license anymore until we figure out what we want to do with that. That's what you're doing later tonight. So I think it's an important tool. I think getting to the point of what's a fair charge for it. Again, I don't have a vested interest in, I have a vested interest in us having good fiscal management. I feel like every year we should look at this and we should look at what's fair. If we feel as though it is not fair to charge businesses $50 for a license, if that's a deal breaker for a business, then we need to look at that. I think, you know, if we look at the number of hours that we spend, you know, how many businesses are there? 367, we said. 300, you're right, 383, but 18 of those were temporary.
So 367.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is, I feel like this is a good debate to have as what is a fair charge for that. I think in part, the mayor has a good point that oftentimes things aren't taken, and it's a fact that people don't take things seriously if there's not a cost consequence to them. That's why there's a late fee. There's a reason why we incentivize people to do something by a certain time by putting a late fee in place, why we charge a certain amount of money. So if we feel as though that fee needs to be reduced.
I guess from my perspective, from a non-business owner perspective, it's like cost of doing business, right? It's using our public roads to have financial gain in some sense. If $50 is gonna break you, maybe you probably shouldn't be a business, to be honest. At the end of the day, it's $50. I don't think it's an exorbitant amount. People have to pay that for other fees that we've seen for housing, for other such things. It shouldn't be an issue.
Matter of $50, right? It's a matter of if it's fair. Of course, $50 is not gonna break anybody. But I get a $50 piece of paper.
Right, that we use as a way to, as Lori explained, control whether or not business makes sense to having in our town. And given that we have such a high expectation of what our town culture should be, I think it is important to maintain the system as such. And at the end of the day, I think it is fair because you're using public utilities, and I'm sure you get taxed in many other ways outside of that to compensate for that, but it's $50, so at the end, it shouldn't be a deal breaker.
Okay, Dana, please.
That's the mouse.
My comment was when Lori was reviewing 2022, talked about the police department calls, and business calls were the second one. And I know that doesn't necessarily offset that, but it just goes back into helping our city function.
Yeah, because the police department doesn't charge for.
Correct, right.
But it is a service provider. That's very.
Also, $50 is minimal, it could be substantial to someone. But now that Main Street is back here as well, there could be some benefit from that too.
Any other thoughts on this? Does city council feel that we should modify the business license fee? I could take a straw poll and see if that's something we feel Max does not think so. Dana, do you have an opinion on this?
I don't have any strong feelings myself. I'm willing to be influenced by Tim's opinion, being the business owner.
As am I. I would say this, the $50 to any individual business owner, you may not be able to say, okay, for that business owner, it costs us $50. But keep in mind, they have to send out all these notices for renewal. Then they have to follow up with business owners who did not renew. They have to deal with late fees. Sorry about that, Tim. So it's more than just, you can't just take the cost to one business person necessarily. It's more the collective cost of administering a pretty large number of business licenses. So I would say I'm okay with the fee as it is. I understand Tim's point entirely. Shannon?
I don't have anything else to add.
Well, I think I'm in the minority and I'm not gonna follow myself.
Well, no, that's good conversation. Thanks. Where do you bring that? I don't disagree. Thank you very much. And you kind of.
still think 40% penalty for being late. It's a little steep.
Well, probably is, but late penalties are made to modify behaviors. I don't know how else to put it. That's what we're talking about.
The previous deputy city clerk was chasing people to renew business licenses into the summer and fall of last year, which
Really?
is why we did this.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take that as a kind of a consensus of we're gonna let it lie for now. Thank you all for the conversation. Is there anything else in here that that we feel needs attention? If not, then I would entertain a motion, please.
Just minor, but copying fees for the police department is 25 cents. Library charges 20 cents to print. You should probably align with the library.
I can't think of a good reason why we would do that.
Sure.
I mean,
It's a 5 cents difference.
And I would, yeah, I don't,
Also, I think that's if you do let's say a court request, I think that's a state, fee.
and I guess I just asked, I will ask Christiana this because, we have that in there for a reason because some people still do paper.
Right.
But the majority of records requests, I do believe we provide electronically and we don't charge per piece of paper on that. We just charge if there's labor for that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then I would still entertain a motion.
Councilmember Fujensi moves to adopt resolution number 3, series of 2023, a resolution adopting an updated fee schedule for the city of Leadville.
Grant seconds.
Thank you. Is there any other conversation or discussion? Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hunt,
Yes.
Mayor Lottie,
Yes.
Councilmember Fidenzi,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes,
Councilmember Luna Leon,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
and Councilmember Lloyd Senkirk.
Thank you. And let's all keep in mind, this is an evergreen document. Now, we revisit it once a year, but if during the year, any particular fee needs to be discussed, it's all open to discussion.
And before Chief Daly leaves, I am gonna embarrass him and say, thank you for discussing fee schedule on your birthday. Happy birthday.
happy birthday, Chief.
Sure, Chief,
Happy
you are
birthday.
excused.
It's mine and my son's.
What are you doing here?
I wanted to hear the report, the annual report.
Thank you.
So, great. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Next up, we have resolution number 4, series of 2023, resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with Lake County, acting to the Lake County Sheriff Office services by the Victim Services Unit. Who's taking the lead on this?
Mayor, this is Councilmember Fujensi. Point of
Yes,
order.
sir. Please.
Just to say this, nothing against this next resolution, but the resolution number 3 brought to my attention that the PDF for our final agenda and meeting packet for tonight isn't set up where I can, like, it doesn't have, at least, maybe I'm just having a really tough time tonight, and it's totally possible, but I can't figure out how to make it so on the left-hand side column, you can go to each resolution or ordinance that we're working on, if there's any way that we can make it so the PDFs have those chapters again, or
Yeah.
navigate for me. That was it. Resolution 3 brought to, it took me a while to find the actual page number for that.
Yes. If you click on the arrow on the side of, I believe it's called final agenda. And meeting packet on that left-hand side in that chapter section. A subsection of things pop up that go into more details.
Got it.
Did we-
Never mind. Sorry for the interruption. It's that tab icon that I'm not familiar with. That is whatever generation I'm in, failure to understand technology.
Thank
Thank
you, Christian. You saved yet another aging individual and myself as well.
At this time, we have in front of us a memorandum of understanding. Who would like to take the lead on this?
Well, so it's resolution number 4, series 2023, approving the memorandum of understanding. And I think unless there are any questions, this is the Victim Service Unit Services, and this is something that falls under the Victim Rights Act. I don't know, Chief or Christiana, if you want to answer any questions about this. It is.
Well, Chief, you just have the victims' rights advocates speak to your officers last week, right?
That is correct, sir.
Maybe it was week before last. Could you share with us what they shared and then how that dovetails into what we're agreeing to?
Well, by state law, we're required to provide certain victim services under certain violations of law and stuff. The Leadville Police Department doesn't have the capacity at this point to do that. However, by this memorandum of understanding with the Lake County Sheriff's Office Victim Service Unit, we can utilize their services through this agreement, and then we fulfill our obligation by law to do so. And if Christiana wants to add anything, by all means, Christiana, go ahead and speak forward.
Christiana, please.
I don't have a whole lot to add. This is really, like the chief said, to help the Leadville Police Department fulfill their obligations under the Victims' Rights Act and make sure that crime victims for certain crimes get the services that they are entitled to under the law.
I would say in that presentation they made, what they were doing is sharing with our police department some new forms that they were using. And so it was really an opportunity to train, the police force on their expectation from the victim's advocate point of view. Is that fair?
That is correct. Plus other expanded services like updating with the victim what's going on, taking them places, doing things that would be above and beyond that would help them out in specific cases.
I am curious, those two victims advocates, are they grant funded or do you know?
I think there's a partial grant funding with them, but they also come under the Lake County Sheriff's Office budget as well.
Gotcha.
But by getting in this memorandum of agreement, we can utilize their expertise, their training, their certificates to benefit the citizens of Leadville when we have VRA crimes to comply with.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the memorandum of understanding? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion, please.
Bill Medlad moves to approve resolution number 4, series of 2023, resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with Lake County. Acting through the Lake County Sheriff's Office for services by the Victim Service Unit.
Grant, seconds.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Robbie,
Yes.
Councilmember Fajenzi,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Lilloye,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Livingston is absent, and Councilmember Grant.
Yes.
Thank you. We have moved resolution number 5 to be after ADAP. So next up, we will have ordinance number 1, series of 2023, an ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on the acceptance, processing, and approval of any new business licenses for the rental, leasing, or guiding of off-highway vehicles in the city of Leadville. And this is second reading, so we will go through a public hearing. We did adopt this in first reading on January 3rd of this year. Okay, first I'll ask the city staff to give any presentation or provide any information that they have to city council about the ordinance, so we'll start there.
Sure, I can, and then I'll see if Christiana has anything else to this. First reading, there were a couple suggestions for second reading, and one was to remove the word sale. And so the moratorium would not apply to the sale, but it would apply to guiding. And so our city attorney, Christiana McCormick, made those changes. And Christiana, was there anything that you wanted to add about those changes?
No, not really. The changes were to one recital in the ordinance, and you can see that in the red line as well, just regarding the timing of the moratorium so that the city can adopt or analyze whether it will adopt any OHV regulations around the same time as Lake County will, and then that guiding versus sale change. And I did add a short definition for guiding just in case there's any clarification needed.
Christiana, I believe that I had asked to have snowmobiles included in this, and I think there was a debate about that. I don't remember if we agreed to that or not, because snowmobiles technically were not considered off-highway vehicles, but they are part of the guiding issue that takes place on the east side. So I had wanted snowmobiles to be part of this moratorium. Is that?
Mayor,
Yeah.
we had a conversation about that before first reading last time. There's a statute that regulates snowmobiles, and during our conversation, we discussed that you wouldn't try to add snowmobiles to this ordinance because they are really a separate thing and they have their own regulations and a separate statute. And so it would be outside the scope of this ordinance at this time.
Okay, I do remember that conversation, so thanks for reminding me. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but I am going to accept it.
But it isn't, snowmobiles isn't in this ordinance, isn't it?
It specifically exempts them from this ordinance. Because they're not technically by state statute OHVs.
So if you look at page, I'm gonna say it's 81 of 96 in your packet at the ordinance, you'll see that off-highway vehicle does not include the following, and then it lists 7.
So that was my objection to that was snowmobiles are part of the issue that we're talking about, and so I was concerned that they're not included in this, but if we have to do that separately, we will.
Could somebody define what a vehicle registered pursuant to Article 3 of Title 40?
Christiana?
I couldn't quite hear. Could you repeat?
Christiana, it's number 7 under section 3 definitions. What is a vehicle registered pursuant to Article 3 of Title 42 CRS?
That is a good question, Councilmember Grant. I don't remember off the top of my head. If you give me 10 seconds, I can find out.
You got 9.5.
Got it.
I think it's a UFO. We'll find out.
It's a balloon, don't say
Yes.
what.
No, that's funny. No, we should have a board. While we're waiting for Christiana, I'm going to go ahead and invite the public to speak. Anybody in the public who would like to speak, either in favor of or in opposition to the second reading of this ordinance, would you please let us know that you'd like to speak? Nobody in the city council chambers, anybody on Zoom who would like to speak, either in favor of or opposition to this moratorium. Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to close the public input portion of the public hearing. Bill moves to close the public input portion of the public hearing.
And 11 seconds.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, the public input portion is closed.
Aye.
Thank you. Christiana, any insight yet on that?
Yes, it's just regular motor vehicles that are licensed and registered under state law. So my SUV or somebody's truck or car, passenger vehicle, things like that.
Okay, thank you very much. I was kind of hoping it was one. That's okay. Okay, at this time, we are in the discussion portion of this second reading. Any other discussion?
Can someone remind me why the sale was excluded again?
That was Mayor Pro Tem Green, and she just felt like sales were something completely outside of what we were really trying to consider here. And we all kind of said, okay. And
I think that to capture, it wasn't that we felt that that was something that was a pending problem.
Which makes sense. Yeah. And I think there was lots of revenue argument as well, potential. Yeah.
all right. At this time, I would entertain a motion, please.
That moves to adopt ordinance number 1, series of 2023, an ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on acceptance, processing, and approval of any new business licenses for the rental, leasing, or guiding of off-highway vehicles of the city of Leadville on second reading.
Do I hear a second?
Green seconds.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Yeah.
Councilmember Grant,
No.
Councilmember Lilloye,
Yes.
Councilmember Fortenzi. Councilmember Fortenzi,
Yes.
Mayor Labby,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
and Councilmember Redson.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, it is 7:51 and the public hearing on this ordinance is closed. Okay. Next up, we'll also be a public hearing. This is ordinance number 12, series of 2023, an ordinance amending section 2.48.020 of the Leadville Municipal Code and adding new sections 2.36.080 and 2.48.060 to permit members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission to receive meeting stipends approved by City Council. And this is second reading. So we will go through a very similar process. This public hearing is open at 7:52. And at this time, I would like to hear from staff. Probably not much to talk about.
No, this is a second reading of this, and this is one of the things that came out of our budget discussion for 2023. And a sense from the council that out of fairness, we should compensate our community members who are willing to step up and serve on very important preserving our past and planning for our future commissions. And so this is just implementation of that sentiment. And I do not believe there were any changes from first reading to second reading.
Thank you. I'd like to ask, open this to the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to speak either in favor of or opposition to this ordinance on second reading? Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public input portion of the public hearing.
Grant moves to close the input portion. Public input.
Regency seconds.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All were in favor. At this time, we are in deliberation. Is there any thing anybody would like to put up relative to this? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion, please.
So much to adopt the rules of the policy 2022, an ordinance in section 2.48.020, the Leadville Municipal Code, and adding new sections 2.36.080 and 2.48.060, permit members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission receive meeting stipends approved by the city council on second reading.
Seconds.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, for Gen C, council member for Gen C has a little discussion.
Yes, please.
Super stoked that we're actually doing this for our Planning and Zoning Commission and for our Historic Preservation Commission. That said, I'm also really looking forward to when the city council increases their meeting stipend or monthly stipend. Just for the record, Councilmember Hill's dad back in the early 90s received the same amount of compensation as we do currently as city council. So this is a step in the right direction. We're very fortunate that we're giving individuals their
I wonder what
due.
the value of money was, comparatively, if you go back, 40 years. Just Paul. So we need to do that actually, sometime, let's say the next 3 or 4 months. And the reason we do it, because you need to do that before people are willing or are prepared to run for election or re-election. They need to know, what it is that's being offered for that election. And the same is, of course, going to be true of mayor. And so that's not a conversation we're going to have tonight, but it is a significant conversation we need to have. So.
And if there is a way to get that in the next 3 to 4 months, fantastic. I saw Dana's hand up, so I'll stop and be quiet and turn my camera off.
No, you both just kind of completed my thought, which was, can we put both the city council wages and the mayor's wage on one of our work sessions coming up shortly?
No, I think we should. Thank you very much. I think there's a lot to consider there, in my opinion. We'll see. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hill,
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Pergenzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Craig,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna Leal,
Yes.
Mayor Lobby,
Yeah.
and Councilmember Larson is absent.
Nice work, everybody. At this time, it is 7:57, and this public hearing on second reading is closed. Thank you. Now we have resolution number 5, series of 2023, resolution setting a meeting stipend for regular members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Historic Preservation Commission. This being done under resolution, and this is not a public hearing, but we do have a proposed motion, and we have stipend amounts.
Grant moves to adopt resolution number 5, series of 2023, a resolution setting a meeting stipend of $200 for regular members, $200 per month for regular members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, HPC.
Do I have a second?
Seconds.
Any other discussion?
Yes, this is Councilmember for Gen C. Talking Christiana, did we change the language in the official resolution so it doesn't say $200 per meeting? However, it says $200 per month.
You bet. That is what it says, $200 per month.
Perfect. Thank you. I just haven't seen that new resolution, so glad to see that it's changed. Thank you so much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for catching that. We appreciate that. Did you actually say for meeting or did you say for month?
Per month.
Okay, then we're good. All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Green,
Yes.
Councilmember Cortese,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna,
Yes.
Councilmember Grant,
Yes.
Mayor Levy,
Yes.
and Councilmember Whitson is absent.
Excellent, thank you very much. At this time, we have the meetings planner. Anybody have anything on the meetings planner? I would say legal sanitation has changed their meetings to the second Wednesday of the month. So they'll be meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And Parkville Water still has the second Thursday of each month.
I am not able to be here on February 21st.
Okay.
I would say, tourism panel. That's going to every other month. There is no tourism panel meeting in February or April.
Okay, good to know.
What day is it?
Tourism panels,
There's a change.
It's on the calendar, right?
thank you. Tourism panel will not be there on 21st.
It's not on here, but the regional housing authority meeting is supposed to be the 15th. We have a conflict with one of our members. We'll see if the date's changed or not. So we're pending between the 15th and the 22nd, regardless scenarios.
Okay, I have listed the 15th, but I'll put a question mark on that. Thank you.
That's the 28th.
Yes.
Okay, and just a reminder that, bless you. Bless you.
Got Zoom.
Allergic to public meetings. Probably. Just a reminder that the city council is having a work session on the 28th. And just confirming that is 6 p.m. work session.
6 p.m. regarding short-term rentals.
Same thing as last meeting or different?
Here at 6 p.m. Yes.
This is Dana. I will only. I'll possibly be there. I'll be gone working. And if it's not, I don't want to jinx myself. If it's not busy, I'll tune in remotely, but there's a possibility that I won't be there.
Okay, thank you. Any other meeting thoughts or changes? Okay, mayor's report. At the end of last year, we did buy a speaker system out of the city hall budget, and now we have it. And so the first time we'll use it will be for the Leadville Local. And we mirrored what the school district bought, so that we can also share speakers. If they, Scott Carroll and I met the other day, and he was pretty enthusiastic about it. He said there are times when maybe there's a 2-speaker system as is ours, but those will all link up. You know, the 4-speaker system, if you need for it too. So, I'm pretty excited that we're not going to have to beg at every parade for a speaker system, going into the future. On the flip side of that is, I think we have to be very careful, and this is one thing Scott and I talked about, very careful about how it's used and who uses it. So it's not like we're gonna limit it out to anybody who wants it. That is a disaster waiting to happen. And that's what, the rec department, the county fact, they have a speaker system similar to this, and it just got destroyed. So, and they don't have one now
Where are we keeping it?
in my office.
Yes.
It's, yeah, we could jam out. That's nice. We get next city council meeting. I do want to say that BOCC, put in place their moratorium on OHVs today. There was a long conversation about it. Well, I shouldn't say long, but there was a conversation about it. A lot of people attended last week. And there was some good conversations that took place, and they've been open to conversations with people. So I like the way it's being handled. I'll leave it at that. No telling what the outcome may be. But I think everybody's handled themselves very well in terms of intelligent conversation, trying to figure out what's best for our community, our county, and businesses. So we'll see what the balance looks like there when all is said and done. Last thing I have is, Ski Tour is coming up, which is great. But that weekend, Spirit of the Shaft is on Friday. The Colorado Cup, which is a national snowshoe race, out at the college Saturday morning, then ski join at noon. Mineral Belt Mayhem.
Oh, what you're doing?
Yeah, no. I go cheer everybody off the starting line. That's it. That's as good as it gets with a beer in one hand. And then, they also all usually have knockout sprints on the avenue for the high school kids. It's just, there are so many things going on that weekend. It is just fabulous. That's it. Council report.
Got one, actually, Regenza is here. Unmuted, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna tell Lori Simonson, Lori, I'll see you at the start line for the Mineral Belt Mayhem.
All right. It's a throwdown.
Yes, it is. We were there last year together. This is gonna be our second annual.
It's our anniversary. Well, Max, I just hope we finished it with as many smiles as we finished last time. That's all
That's right.
It finishes at the Silver Dollar Saloon. How bad could it be?
It's cold.
But yeah, they could be bad. Yes, please.
Homelessness, putting time count. Not looking good, 29 in winter.
I'm shocked.
And that's honestly, my personal opinion, an undercount of double. There's always gonna be issues. It's typical, it's usually what we like to call the least amount of people, or at the very least, there are 29 people homeless, which is a lot for our community, given that it's winter time. We all know how much more we have homelessness we have in our community when it's summertime. Point time counts are great for cities where weather changes, and as apparent, like in California, it's gonna be completely different for us. We see it every summer, it's nothing new. This fact that it's sitting at 29 is pretty shocking, as you said, and it's problematic. It's problematic to hear that we have 29 people at any time facing homelessness in these conditions. Double up isn't necessarily the most comfy for one, and definitely not the most stable of places to live in. There's a lot of issues, a lot of disputes, a lot of abuses that come along with that type of living. So it is an unhealthy area for people to live in, and it has the potential of leaving people on the streets. It also didn't include couch surfing of any kind, which is another area of high risk people who could be homeless. So we are truly facing homelessness, much like everyone else will be here soon, at these rates.
To add on to that, Christian, I am working through my church with a family of 9.
Yeah.
Wow.
that is homeless. And finding home for 7 children and 2 adults, it's close to impossible.
It's intense. On that note, related to homelessness, the state is looking to repeal a ban on any rent control. I think it's in our best interest that we make sure that we are properly represented as Leadville in that section, as it very clearly is influencing our community with the prices going to astronomical heights to the point where it's unlivable and it's driving our community away. Not only is it driving our community away, but it's driving them to homelessness as we keep seeing these issues rise over and over. So I would ask for your all support in such ban and connect to our representative at the state level, at the very least to Speaker Julie McCluskey, who is our representative, to implore that we as a city feel strongly that this is something that we should be given the option to do. Doesn't mean that we will.
No, I understand. It's an interesting debate in my mind. There are arguments for and against rent control in places where we've had rent control for decades. It's caused the deterioration of those living, circumstances in those rent control buildings. I'm not saying that would happen here. I'm just saying that's part of the debate, and it's something I think we need to have an open discussion about. On the other hand, I don't disagree that the rents have just, it is unbelievable to me that they can charge $2,200 for a 2-bedroom house. I am shocked. So I'm also very surprised at a 29 count. I didn't expect that at all. Anybody else, any other city council reports? Yes, Max, please.
Not really much of much of a report, but just letting you know, I'm on my second week of a detail here down in Idaho Springs, working for the Forest Service. And what I can say is in 2 weeks is I have seen the future from the amount of demand there is for this community and the recreation services around Idaho Springs. I'm actually quite surprised how much, I mean, it's coming our way is what I'm saying, and I know everybody knows that. It's only a matter of time when we see folks. I mean, what we're going to see a watershed moment where our influx of individuals coming up for recreation, if our economy and everything else kind of stays on this trend, double at the minimum. And so certain pieces that and that's not only from a visitation standpoint, but also individuals looking to live in our community. Just conversations I've had when I say that I live in Leadville is, oh, how is it to live in Leadville? Right. And I tell them that it's at a minimum, they are on at least 2 boards. So we have that going for us. But I will say that we have a mark on our back, and it's probably, I mean, for better or for worse, I'm not saying it's a bad mark. I'm just saying it is a mark. People are looking at our community as a place to come, not only to visit, but also to recreate. And we have to be prepared for that influx because it's coming. And I know we've said this before, but I mean, it was in my face already in less than 2 weeks to be here in what you considered a sleepy little town of Idaho Springs from the folks I'm doing. And so certain services that I feel that are very important for our community are that bus system that we're working with for the county, and also not limiting it just to our underserved communities, but also increasing that for recreation. If anybody's been up there to Ski Cooper lately, the parking lot on the weekends are out to almost the road these days. So we are seeing that already, and that in the fact that we're going to need services up to our Ski Cooper area in any other places. Secondarily, Idaho Springs has a recreation center. Okay, it has a pool, as a recreation center. For a city in Colorado not to have that type of services, not only for our community, but also for visitors, is in that arena. I don't think we're showing up, and I think we're kicking the can down the road, saying we just can't do it right now. I feel that there's a lot of opportunities to perhaps partner with school district, partner with the county, and really come up with an opportunity for a recreation center for our, I mean, just for maybe not even our children, but our children's children, right? We really have to get on that and make that a priority. And I know that there's other priorities, but you know what? In this day and age, we have to be really prepared. We can't just do one thing at a time. We have to be multi-pronged and move forward on that. And so, I mean, if Idaho Springs can have a recreation center, we can have a recreation center. And if anybody in this council even feigns kicking the can down and saying it's not a priority, I don't think we're doing a service to our community. We have to make that a priority. It is in the wintertime, it's skiing, ice skating, or nothing, right? And without a pool, that and I'm not on the Moab Swims Committee. I'm not professing it. I'm just saying we're as a community, we have to show up, not for today, but our future of tomorrow. And so I just want the council to think about that themselves, and with everything else we have, and come up with solutions and not barriers, right? We can get over barriers if we do this together. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Max. Very, very well put. I appreciate it, really. I mean, I think you're spot on. I know we have a lot of priorities, but I feel, said before, I'll say it again, I feel like we've really let the youth of Leadville down by not having a place to get. And so I wholeheartedly agree, but you're right. We have a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of priorities, but thank you very much.
I want to emphasize that we should not take the argument that has been done time and time again when I was in high school that, oh, there is plenty to do, you just don't want to go outside. That's not an excuse anymore. It's not that we don't want to go outside, it's that we want somewhere when it's 0 degrees or 12 degrees to go inside and say, hey, you know, I went skating, that's great. Now I want to go inside and work out or swim, rock climb, or whatever it is, so that I'm
Even having an arcade or something.
yeah, or hang out. Just something to do that isn't freezing my ass off.
And the first step I have, and I know it's not within city limits, however, I think this is a collaborative process. We should talk to the Lake County School District and see, and I don't know the name of the ball field next to the elementary school on Harrison, but that is an underutilized piece of land that could be very well served for a large recreation center if we can get if the school district could buy off on that.
I can tell you the school district and the county, we talked about that being one of the sites for affordable housing. It went down in flames. And right now, they're talking about a swap for that land between the school district and the county. And the school district considers that the site of a future campus, school campus. So, I mean, there's a lot of long range thinking going on, and I agree with you. When we wanted to make it affordable housing, people went crazy. They just went crazy. So it's the NIMBYs, but that's just the way it is.
We're
Oh,
gonna
that's
find
good.
someplace, we're gonna find someplace, because we
Yeah,
need.
no. Okay, thank you. Any other city council reports or thoughts or? Okay, at 8:18, the city council is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Closer to 8 o'clock than I had anticipated.
Oh, you're welcome. I was like, all right, guys, let's get